Good afternoon. How is everybody doing today? I am James the Weatherman. Welcome to the stream. If you are new, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We'll then be talking about the winter weather discussion for 2020 and 21. Make sure you share this out to all your friends and family. And that's what I'm doing right now. So make sure you guys do the same. I hope everybody's doing good today. I will say hey to you in the chat in 1 second. Ready? Everybody say hey in the chat, and I'll say hi back to you guys. Hey, Susie. Yeah, no problem. Hey, Heather. Hey, Harami. Say hey in the chat, and we will be, I'll say hey back to you. I hope everybody's doing good today. Talking a little bit about the winter to come. Let's just start. And I will go, if I see new people, I will say hi then. This is today. We will look at the Climate Prediction Center. Climate Prediction Center for the next 6 to 10 days. They have the Dakotas, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Denver. I didn't forget my states. Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even Michigan and Illinois and parts of Indiana. They're all in the below average temperature. So as you see, the darker blue is 90% below average. And you go all the way down to, you get into New Mexico and Nevada, and you're in that 33 to 40% below average. This includes California. California is going to be below average in temperatures for the next 6 to 10 days. Above average temperatures is basically everything on the East Coast and southern parts of Texas, all of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. The Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, they're all in that high, the upper 80, 90, above normal for temperatures. Now let's look at the 6 to 10 for the precipitation probability outlook. We have Wyoming, the Colorado, Utah. They're in the percentile of 50. Everything you see in the green is basically above normal. So that includes basically every state in the United States. Every state. Welcome, Claire. But we will look at the winter outlook. The National Oceanic, the NOAA, for winter 2020 has put cooler than normal in Washington, northern Idaho, good chunk of Montana, the Dakotas, and northwest Minnesota, and parts of Alaska. That's above, or that's going to be cooler than normal. We're in an El Nino year, or not a El Nino, La Nina, my bad. Corrected myself, a La Nina. And that is the outlook for the temperatures of winter 2020. Probability of above normal temperatures is all in the red. So a lot of people are like, oh, I see this and it means that it's going to be in the 80s and 90s all winter. So above normal means your average temperature, say your average temperature in Texas, in Dallas, Texas, is 60 degrees average. Your average temperature is 60 degrees. Above normal, I know this is weird, categorized. If it goes, I think it's 3 degrees above normal, it's considered, that's what they're predicting is above normal. So it could be anywhere from 3 degrees up to 10 degrees. Hello, Harami. How are you? Welcome. So, temperature, the greatest chance of warmer than normal conditions extend across the southern tier of U.S. from southwest across the Gulf states into the southeast. More modest probability for warmer temperatures are forecasted in the southern parts of the west coast and from mid-Atlantic into the northeast. Above average temperatures are also favored for Hawaii and western and northern Alaska. Precipitation. You see, this is the drought right now. Yellow is developing drought tendency. The brown is continue or worsen drought. And you see a big chunk of North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, basically all the Wyoming, all the southwest part of the United States is in a drought of some sort. And the ending of the drought is the greenish, and the improved part of the drought, that's northern Cali into Oregon, that is the grayish. Precipitation. Did I miss Oh, here's precipitation. Precipitation above normal or wetter than normal is a good chunk of the parts, or a good chunk of the northwest, and into like Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. That is that's above normal, wetter than normal. So that's the NOAA. Here we got.
At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode until the
Georgia and northern Florida. And finally, drought conditions are expected to improve in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, New England, Alaska, and Hawaii. And with that, let me turn it back to Lauren.
Thanks, Mike. Before we move on to the Q&A, I want to introduce David Miskus. He leads the Climate Prediction Center's Drought Outlook team and contributes to the weekly Drought Monitor. David will take drought-related questions, while Mike Halpert will focus on questions about the seasonal temperature and precipitation outlooks. Also joining us on the call is Ira Sanchez-Lugo, a climatologist from NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. Operator, if you would please, we can begin the Q&A.
Thank you, Lauren. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1. Please unmute your phone and record your name and affiliation clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. To cancel your request, press star 2. And speakers, one moment for the first question. All right, our first question comes from Seth Bornstein with the Associated Press. Seth, your line is open.
Thank you. Actually, I have two questions. First, for Mike, in terms of, this has been, in the Arctic, especially places like Siberia, it's been record warm, and a lot of that heat has gone into the ocean in the polar region there. Have you factored in, do you expect any of the heat that's trapped in the ocean that might be released back to the atmosphere, any of that to affect sort of the polar vortex? Are we likely to see some more wandering and weaker polar vortex this season or not? And then the second question, maybe more for David, is if it's right now about 45% of the CONUS is drought struck, about what percent are we looking at by by deep winter here? Thank you.
All right, Seth, this is Mike. I'll take the first part of the question. Certainly what goes on over the Arctic and in the extratropical oceans, can influence the weather. It's oftentimes, though, in an unpredictable fashion. The way we would typically leverage that would be from our climate model forecasts. And the reality is that there's really no indication that we'll see, kind of a weak polar vortex and very cold weather. Obviously, at this point, we think the most likely areas to be cold are in the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest, and that's really linked to the ongoing La Nina.
Hey, Seth, this is Dave Miskus here. For your second question, the good news is I guess while we look for possible development of drought and expansion across the southern tier of states and in the southwest, the northern tier up in the Pacific Northwest, the northern Rockies, and maybe the northern plains, and also New England will probably show some improvement in the next several months. So while you get an increase in drought in the south, you get a decrease of drought in the north. So maybe they'll balance each other out and will be pretty much similar to where we are now in a couple of months from now.
All right, thank you.
Our next question comes from Brian Sullivan with Bloomberg News. Brian, your line is open.
Thank you. Excuse me. California's been having a great deal of difficulty from the heat and the dry conditions out there. Could you dig in a little bit and is there any kind of relief that California can expect this year, or is the La Nina going to lock everything down so they're not going to get anything?
Again, this is Mike. Obviously we favor dry and warm for California, and especially Central and Southern California. But that certainly doesn't mean, that the entire 3 months, and of course we're actually looking, a month ahead. This is only October, so we still have a little bit of a lead up before we get to that point. It's hard to really comment on the typical variability throughout the season. That's something that while we would love to be able to share and provide information on, the reality is that the science just doesn't allow for that. I don't believe there's all that much relief in our shorter range outlooks at this point, but it certainly doesn't preclude that from occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bruce, this is Dave Miskus here. And for the drought outlook, we were thinking there's some chance of maybe some improvement up in the northern portion of California where more of their larger reservoirs are at. So if the La Nina does come true and there's some enhanced precipitation during the winter, hopefully Northern California can get a little bit of a break as far as the drought goes and fill up some of those reservoirs.
I will add, not the outlook. This is Mike again. That we're talking about the winter outlook. The current forecast for November that was also issued this morning. Again favors above average temperatures over the whole state and a slight tilt towards dry in the southern part. So we're not highlighting any real possibility. Not that it can occur, but we're not highlighting. We're not favoring above average precipitation on even our shorter time scales right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Joan Gralla. Joan, your line is open.
Good morning. Well, our readers are terribly interested in the outlook for eating out. But my question is more, I see Paris this spring said, no, restaurants, we're not going to have you plunking heaters on the sidewalk because we don't like climate change. Is there any way for you folks to assess the impact of radiant or other heating used by restaurants outside this winter in urban areas, perchance?
I'm not sure if that's one that might be for you or if that's something that perhaps would be for our listeners at OAR who do.
She cut out a little bit. I didn't quite understand the question. Can she repeat it again?
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay, so radiant heating, outdoor dining, is that going to wreck our climate, raising temperatures as Paris fears? Because they're not allowing it for their restaurants. But New York City, for example, is.
I don't see how that can impact in terms of climate change at the moment. Outdoor eating, is that what you're asking?
I'm asking about if you put out those big radiant heaters so that people can eat outside.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
No, we do not have any information on that right now in terms of projections or anything, no.
Is it possible that it's something you folks would research?
We don't, here at NCI, the data that we get is temperature. So I don't think that would have a huge impact. Is that mostly for winter now that it's getting warmer? So no, I don't have any information for you on that right now.
And has anybody, do you happen to know, and I promise this is the last question on this subject, done any studies on the impact, because Los Angeles uses this pretty widely for their terrace restaurants? Nobody's studied that you know of?
Joan, this is Lauren. I think these questions would be best for our colleagues at OAR, the research branch of NOAA, that would have done those kinds of studies if possible.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
So let's follow up, if you don't mind, after today's call. I'll be happy to assist you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone.
Our next question comes from Dan Wanshura with Interlochen Public Radio. Dan, your line is open.
Thanks for taking my question. Yeah, I'm curious to hear your guys' outlook for the Great Lakes region. I'm from a radio station in northern Michigan, and the water levels on the Great Lakes have been really high this year, past couple of years, and I'm wondering how the outlook for the winter might play into that. Is it a positive outlook in terms of high water levels, or does it look like we're going to be in for more trouble? And I'm sorry, I joined a little late. If whoever answers, can you just give me your name and title, please?
Sure. This is Mike Halpert. I'm the Deputy Director with NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. The outlook does favor above average precipitation over all of the lakes. There's not a strong signal temperature-wise for that area. But, if there's enough precipitation falls, I guess, right, with the lake's already at high levels, that certainly could exacerbate things.
And can you explain, I know the winter is an important time for evaporation because the air temperature is colder than the water temperature. How does it look in terms of evaporation, or will the lakes freeze over primarily, and will that hinder evaporation?
Well, I mean, again, obviously, if the lakes do freeze over, sure, that will impact evaporation. We don't issue those types of outlooks, as to evaporation outlooks or lakes freezing. That'll be dependent on whether we see, in particular, some early cold weather. Again, at this point, there's while we expect or we favor colder than average conditions to the west of the lakes, mainly from western Minnesota westward. Michigan and the Great Lakes areas are kind of in between where we're able to say much. So it's kind of a toss-up at this point as to even whether we'll see a cold or a warmer winter there. Thank you.
Operator, if we can go to our next question.
Sure. Our next question comes from Kim Miller from Palm Beach Post. Kim, your line is open.
Hi, thank you so much. So typically, in the past, La Nina has had pretty strong ties to drought in South Florida, but I see that that's not predicted this year. Can you talk a little bit about why that is the case?
Yeah, this is Dave Miskus here. The Southeast has been very wet here the last 6 to 12 months, a lot of it due to tropical systems or stalled cold fronts that came across and has just soaked that area. So there's a lot of short and long-term surpluses across the southeast, including Florida. However, there's a few pockets going out to 3 to 6 months where they're near normal or slightly below normal. So we highlighted on the seasonal drought outlook that area in northern Florida and southern Georgia because we're expecting very dry conditions with the La Nina through the winter. And we're thinking those areas will be the first ones that get around D1 by the end of January or February. Otherwise, we think the surpluses will hold on long enough to prevent any kind of D1 or drier by the end of January or February.
And when you say surpluses, you mean like groundwater levels or reservoirs?
I think the ground levels are pretty good. This is mainly just a meteorological drought, building up some deficits and maybe some topsoil moisture deficits because you do get a colder, lower temperatures during the winter, so there's less evapotranspiration. And so that's the season in the winter is where you get less of the evaporation from the drought. So we're thinking that'll hold on, and there will be no drought there until maybe later in Florida and Georgia, later in the January, February period, if the La Nina holds true and the dryness occurs.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and Kim, this is Mike. Just one thing to be aware of certainly is that the drought outlook product actually covers the period only through January, while the winter outlook does cover another month through February.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so possibly the next one for winter that goes from December, January, February might show a little more development if things progress as we think they might.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Our next question comes from Henry Fountain, New York Times. Your line is open.
Thanks. Two questions, actually. One is talk a little bit about the La Nina. Is it moderate or weak, and what kind of difference one or the other might make? And also, is there any idea of the likelihood of this being the hottest year ever or top 5 or anything like that?
This is Mike. I didn't hear your questions great. I think the first question had to do with the potential strength of this La Nina, which is still developing. It's still a little uncertain as to how strong it will become. I will say the stronger it becomes, the more likely the impacts that we anticipate are to occur. And generally what we see based on the historical record is that weaker events or lead to kind of more variability throughout the winter. The stronger events, oftentimes we see a pattern really lock in and take hold. I didn't catch your second question, Henry. Could you repeat that?
Sure. Yeah. It was just the outlook for 2020 being hottest year ever, top 5, whatever.
Oh, you're looking at the global global temperature for 2020.
Yeah.
I can respond to that. This is Iris Sanchez-Lugo. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we are expecting, through data through September, there is about a 65% chance of the global temperature to rank as the warmest on record, with about a 35% chance of it being second warmest. So it is very likely to end among the 2 to 3 warmest years on records, and it's a very tight race right now.
Does La Nina have an impact on that? I assume it would.
Yes, we typically see that the La Nina tends to help cool a little bit the global temperatures compared to neighboring years where an El Nino was present in the tropical Pacific Ocean. Our statistics, the statistics that I gave you, does not take into account El Nino and La Nina at the moment. We typically see that when it comes to global temperatures, there tends to be a lag in that response, about 2 to 3 months. So we'll have to see, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for right now, it is a very tight race.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Nancy Garner with Omaha World Herald. Your line is open.
Thank you for taking this our call. Hey, my question actually goes to spring flooding, since we've had 2011 and 2019. When I look at a forecast for above average snowpack in the northern plains, that's what comes to my mind. So, couple parts to this question. One is, do you have the capacity to and I think you've partly answered it already, the capacity to know how intense snowpack could come, how much it could tilt toward the extreme. And so that's part of it, your ability to assess the potential for extreme snowpack based on La Nina. And does La Nina extend into the spring when we get those spring rains on top of snowpack, or does it tend to not be a factor in spring rains in the upper plains? And then do you happen to know whether a La Nina winter was in place preceding the 2011 flooding and the 2019 flooding? So those are my questions. I'd be happy to repeat them. Thank you for your time.
So I can take that. This is Mike. There was a La Nina, that pretty healthy one in the 2010-2011 season. So certainly that was a stronger event. Actually, the flooding in 2019 came after an El Nino. So again, this kind of shows you the variability around these things. It doesn't mean, oh, we've got, La Nina, this is what's going to happen. We do in the northern plains favor both below average temperatures and above average precipitation, which, could certainly lead to above average snowpack. Of course, the reality is that snowfall is really more a weather type phenomena, depending on storm track as much as anything. We've looked into seasonal snowfall forecasts. It's still something that we're trying to develop, since we know there would be a lot of interest in it, but we don't issue that at this point. So can't really comment on expectations for snow in that area. Was there another part of that question that I'm forgetting, Nancy?
Yeah, does La Nina have an influence on spring rains? Because spring rains were a huge factor in the 2011 flooding.
Well, the current spring outlooks really in the northern plains don't have much of anything. If we're looking over Nebraska, there actually is a bit of a tilt towards drier than average conditions. That's kind of a longer lead outlook. As we're talking about the winter outlook right now, we do issue outlooks that go out, seasonal outlooks that go out a year into the future. So at least at this point, we are tilting towards drier than average conditions by the time we get into the spring and at least into the central plains.
Yeah, just one last stab at that question. When we have a La Nina winter, does its influence on precipitation linger past the winter months? That's kind of what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, and actually the forecast we're discussing is certainly related to La Nina. Again, the dry signal that we see across the South, for reasons that I honestly can't explain, we oftentimes see that signal kind of extend northward in the middle of the country. So whereas maybe in the winter it's a wetter signal, as we go further into the year, we kind of almost flip it in some areas to a drier signal.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Our next question comes from Jarrett Lansford with KTIV TV. Your line is open.
All right, thank you. I have a couple questions here. KTIV is in Sioux City, Iowa, so they're going to be hyper-focused on the southeast South Dakota, northeast Nebraska, and western Iowa areas. First of all, how does a La Nina typically impact those areas? Second of all, we've been locked in a severe to extreme drought through the summer and fall. Is there any help on the way for that? And also, how might the drought that's in place impact the winter versus the La Nina setup?
So this is Mike. That area is typically, what we see with La Nina is the jet stream oftentimes becomes a little wavier and shifts further to the north. Of course, every event is different. The Iowa, Wisconsin area oftentimes falls kind of in between, or becomes very uncertain as to whether they become drier as the drier signal and the jet stream shifts further north, or becomes wetter as it doesn't shift quite as far. So the forecasts for Iowa are actually that equal chance category, so it's just as likely to be wetter, dry, warm, or cold in that part of the country. As far as the impact of the current drought on the winter outlook, soil moisture typically plays a stronger role in influencing climate during the warm season, not during the cold season. So, my expectations would be that the La Nina, depending on how we see the jet stream set up this winter, will play a much larger role than an ongoing drought there.
Hey, Jarrett, this is Dave Miskus here, too. To add to Mike's comments, plus you get into the wintertime where the soils might freeze, so any precipitation that does fall may kind of just stay on the surface and not really get into the subsoil moisture. So we'd have to wait till the spring to see what happens to see any kind of soil moisture recharge. So it's not looking too good for removing that drought in especially western Iowa, where it's been lingering for the last 6 to 9 months here. We'll have to wait and see what the spring brings.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next question comes from Dave Olson from the Forum. Your line is open.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Our readers are focused on eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota, and from your outlook, it sounds like we're going to be wetter than average and colder than average this winter. I'm wondering if you know the magnitude of those outlooks. Are we going to be much wetter and much colder? And as with the question from Omaha, spring flooding is always a major concern here. Do your numbers tell you anything about what might be happening here this spring?
So this is Mike. The reality is what our forecasts mean is when we favor above or below, it's basically a tercile type forecast. So it's in the upper tercile, and for temperature, that's really only about a degree or two above or below normal. So favoring below normal doesn't say that it's going to be, the coldest winter on record or anything like that. It certainly is possible, but we're just not able to really be any more specific than that. Again, spring flooding will depend on the character of the winter and obviously how much snow falls. A colder, wetter winter, though, would likely favor more snowfall than usual as well and possibly lead to flooding concerns as we get to the spring. I will say that NOAA issues a spring flood outlook in March, and so certainly, that those as we see what happens this winter, that will certainly inform what we say about the spring flood outlook come next March.
Thank you much.
Next question is from Chris Perkins from South Florida Sun Sentinel. Your line is open.
I appreciate you all doing this. I got a couple of quick questions. I believe that they would be for Mike, but anyone is free to answer. I wanted to drill down on South Florida and Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Miami-Dade County. La Nina should bring us a warmer, drier winter, as I understand it. Number one, are we talking about any kind of records there as far as warmth and dryness? And number two, does the La Nina affect the king tides down here?
So, how's everybody doing? If you're new, I'm James the Weatherman back here. So let's talk about the next couple days. Next couple days, we got a couple chances of some snowstorms in the Dakotas, Montana, going all the way. There's going to be two sets of storms. First storm's going to be Tuesday. That will be affecting Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. Next storm after that will be about Thursday. And that should affect the same areas, maybe even some parts of Wisconsin. So, so this probability, this for the next 72 hours, this is the probability of getting at least 2 inches of snow. You see Montana and the Rocky Mountains, you see about 95% chance they're going to get at least 2 inches of snow all the way down into the Cascades. Then you got into central Minnesota, heading from just west of Missouri River all the way to the Red River Valley, at least 2 inches of snow. And then you got from about St. Cloud, Minnesota, all the way up through close to Duluth, all the way up to the Canadian border, at least 2 inches of snow. We will go to the 4-inch, at least 4 inches. Rocky Mountains again is in that mark for 90% chance it's going to get at least 4 inches of snow. The blue area, you got about 50 to 60. Montana, this week in Montana, a good chunk of Montana received about 10 inches of snow already. So they could be looking for another 6 to 8 more inches in the areas that got 10 inches of snow. Rocky Mountains again looking at, we go all the way up to 18 inches, and part of the Rocky Mountains is still, but that is normal because altitude. Let's go and look at wish we could we'll start here. So this is looking at the Northwest United States. We're going to be looking at the next couple days. This is a GFS model. We'll look at the GFS and we'll look at the Euro and kind of compare. And then we can look at a few short-term models as the snow is going to be, you can already see on GFS, they might be getting some snow in Montana currently. So, GFS is showing snowfall already in the Rocky Mountains, snow and rain mix. Right in here near the Wyoming-Montana border. And Northwest U.S. will likely have a couple storms this week. First storm will be starting. GFS is not showing much. Let's see. Why don't you cooperate, maybe? Yeah, today. So this is tonight. Rocky Mountains, there's going to be a low that's heading, or that's right north of the Montana Canadian border. That low is going to be sitting there, and it's going to be pushing, we can actually look at, let's just go to winter. So oh man. You see it now? Okay. So in the Montana side, near Billings, Montana, could be seeing, according to the Euro, could be seeing 2 inches by tonight. Go 12 more hours out. As we looked at this Climate Prediction Center, we already seen that The Rocky Mountains is going to likely get more than 8 inches. Euro is kind of favoring it as well. Looks like Rocky Mountains all the way up to like Glacier National Park could be receiving anywhere up to 3 to 4 inches within tonight, and then probably another 4 inches tomorrow. So if you're headed up to Glacier National Park, you likely will. There's already snow up there, but you'll likely get some more snow. Well, let's see how well this shows on. Because I want to see at the end of these storms how much they. Oh, yeah. So by Thursday night, Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, we're looking at, according to the NAM, we're on the NAM. According to the NAM, this is 10-1 ratio. This is inches. Total accumulation, we'll look at the Kuchera and the 10-1 ratio. But it's looking like anywhere from, on the Rocky Mountain side, anywhere from 4 to... Rocky Mountains, you could be looking at 3 to 6, maybe even all the way up to 10 inches of snow by Thursday at 7 p.m. Now, remember that this is one model. If we go to the different section of the NAM, it's showing 24 inches right at the border. We can go back to this. It's only showing 13 inches. So kind of meet in the middle up at that border. I'd meet in the middle and say, hey, we got one saying 13, one saying 25. Let's meet in the middle. Let's go about 16. That's max. Max amount of snow we would likely see up in that area. Now, we're looking at a radar, or not a radar, a model that's showing 13 inches of snow. We got to go to temperature, and temperature is showing favorable, but we got to go back throughout the day, and if we see it going above freezing, that's gonna mess the whole. So this Wednesday or Tuesday late night could be right around freezing. So we got to keep that in mind. How much snow is up there currently? What are we looking at snow depth? Snow depth right now, up in that area, anywhere from 5 to 7 inches of snow. That's from this last weekend. And there's many areas, not just Montana, that's going to be getting snow. Not just part of Washington. Not just part of Idaho. Or not Idaho, Wyoming. You got into the Dakotas, both south and north. You got into Nebraska. Let's go here. Let's do this one. Okay, we got snowfall through Thursday at 7 p.m. You got a good chunk in North Dakota, partly in South Dakota. All of Minnesota will likely receive snow. Most of Montana will likely receive snow. Probably most of North Dakota will likely see measurable snowfall. But temperatures are going to be off and on. Let's go to National Weather Service, Great Falls. So Wednesday, the National Weather Service forecast office in Great Falls, Montana. For Wednesday snow, they're showing that that area that we were looking at as heavier snowfall possible. After a short break in the snowfall on Tuesday, another round of accumulating snowfall is expected Wednesday into Wednesday night. This is potential that some of the snowfall could exceed 4 inches, especially in higher elevations along the Rocky Mountain front and across mountains of central Montana. Now we're just looking at models. All this stuff that we're looking at, I am telling you my opinion, basically. So stay tuned to your local weather offices because they know more about the area. We can go to National Weather Service Bismarck. And let's see what they have to say. 2 rounds of winter weather this week. Tonight into Tuesday. Looks like everybody's probably going to be getting at least an inch of snow tonight into Tuesday. Wednesday night, according to Bismarck, North Dakota's National Weather Service, they say confidence continues to increase. Significant winter storm will impact the northern plains Wednesday night through Thursday. Heavy snow is possible in some areas. At the moment, areas along and south of Highway 2 are most favored for heavy snow. So that's this area. So everything from south. The uncertain for this area is who will get the heaviest snow, what's the greatest snow accumulations will be. So if you live in North Dakota, you will likely be getting quite a bit of snow this week. The outlook, temperatures. We didn't look at temperatures over at not real used to. Currently, temperatures are I'm guessing these are current temperatures. 54 degrees. Missoula. Yeah, it sounds about right. I wouldn't say a winter storm quite yet. Possibly a winter storm that's in effect Montana, North Dakota, and northwestern part of Minnesota. Tonight, or tomorrow night, my bad. Tonight, we will be looking at this, and then 48, we'll be looking at this, from about St. Cloud, near the cities, be likely getting a couple inches of snow. I wouldn't say. I would say it's going to be a winter storm, but it's not going to be I don't think it's going to meet the criterias of whoever names the winter storms. I think it's the Weather Channel. They name winter storm. I don't know if it's going to meet their criteria. So that's about it for today. Watch this.
On October 15th, NOAA issued its December through February outlooks for temperature, precipitation, and drought. A steady decrease in sea surface temperature signaled the development of La Nina during August. This pattern of cooler ocean temperature in the central Pacific is expected to continue and will likely influence winter temperature and precipitation. Above average temperatures are favored in the southern two-thirds of the nation, the Northeast, portions of Alaska, and Hawaii. Below average temperatures are most likely across the northern plains, the Pacific Northwest, and parts of Alaska. For every location, there exists the possibility of below, near, or above average conditions. The maps display the most likely category with higher probabilities indicating greater confidence. Our forecast favors below normal precipitation in southern Alaska and across the southern half of the nation. Above average precipitation is favored across much of the north, including the Ohio River Valley, the Great Lakes, the Pacific Northwest, western Alaska, and in Hawaii. Both outlooks have parts of the country labeled EC for equal chances, which means there's no tilt in the odds toward any outcome. Drought currently dominates the western half of the U.S. and parts of the Northeast. Improvement is expected there, in the Pacific Northwest, and in Hawaii. Elsewhere, drought is expected to persist, with drought development anticipated in California, the central and southern plains, and in the southeast. Stay tuned to NOAA to be weather ready and climate smart through the winter months.
So there you go. I'm not going to do any future projections or predictions. Stay tuned to my Discord and the community tab. There is a tropical storm out there right now. I'm kind of not really focused on it because it's not affecting anybody. I am safe to say we might have another tropical storm, but I am safe to say all major hurricane impacts are done for the season. I think I'm safe to say that. But I'm not 100%. But just stay tuned to the National Hurricane Center. And that season's almost over. We're starting to get into winter season. And I hope everybody has enjoyed this stream. And I got stuff I gotta go do. So hope everybody has a good day, good rest of their day. First, I'm gonna go eat lunch. It's 3 o'clock and I haven't even ate lunch. But just less than 10%. I should play around with this. play around with this. We might have a gaming stream, another one. I have to fortunately get a new computer. No, it's not the Ghost 16. This is Google Earth. So hope everybody has a good rest of their day. And make sure you guys stay weather aware.